Seer, our non-stimulant, thermogenic, and recomposition agent. Seer is a super cool product because it's going to help you utilize turning your white adipose tissue, which is for storage of fat, into brown adipose tissue, which is going to help with energy production. So this is great to use for a competition prep or in your weight loss phase. So you can stack it with a stimulant-based thermogenic, or you could also use it in your off-season or muscle building phase to help keep you lean and mean. Seer.
Did you see that they're possibly remaking or making the sequel to Face Off?
Oh, I should have worn the Face Off shirt.
I know that's you would worn the shirt a couple pods back, and I saw that Nick Cage, and what's his name, not Travolta,
John Travolta.
Yeah, that they're both apparently signed on and they're going to be doing it. Although I'm like, what are they going to do? Are they going to take Travolta's face off again and like?
They're going to reverse it.
What's the plot here? Yeah, snip, snap, snip, snap.
I hope they do it like where it's based in like a nursing home, and they're just messing with each other's families.
Shit, that would be so funny.
They're switching meds.
Like
Totally. So welcome to another episode of the Pro Physique Code. Steven, Tyler, Jessica here today. We hope you guys have been however you want to have been. We're not telling you how you should be living.
You hate when I say have a good day.
I'm gonna have whatever kind of
day I
want.
Don't tell me how to live my life.
If it was good, it was just coincidental. It's not because you said that it should be good.
Shut up. It's because I said so.
So yeah, I think we're gonna have like an ADHD podcast coming up, like in the not too distant future. Where we talk about like some other things, and I think we might get Danica on here. So if those of you really love, and if you can't tell, I'm obviously medicated today. What's up? So less craziness. So if any of you are like thinking about that one, I'm assuming will be fun. ADHDers only, and then Danica the Mind Master.
I love
Can I
that.
call her that?
I like it.
I've never called her that before. I'm pretty sure she's gonna hate it.
That's okay. I like it.
So today we're going to be talking about 5 mistakes made when trying to keep fat off. So essentially the long-term pitfalls that we might get into when we're trying to keep body weight off and keep body fat down after we've lost it. So this is not during the dieting phase. This is not like, yes, I need to be 2 pounds lighter. Does anybody have a 2 pound weight loss? Have you ever met anybody that's like, yeah, I just need 2 pounds. 2 pounds and I'm happy.
Maybe me after a weekend of pizza.
I was gonna say, I mean, maybe I have.
But no.
But
competitors for sure. Like, oh, I just need to be 2 pounds leaner for this next show. We're gonna be good. Right. But because it's something that we don't talk about, or maybe we don't talk about enough, or maybe we do. I don't know. I'm a broken record. But it's really easy to get lost in the fact that people are actually very good at losing weight. Most people have successful diets. It's not really the most complex thing if we want to just starve ourselves into weight loss. The hard part for the vast majority of people comes after the dieting phase is over, and when it comes down to maintaining weight loss and a healthy weight and body weight after that. Because the amount of weight regain that we see post-diet overall in society is, I don't know.
Yeah.
You could argue we don't have a dieting problem. We've got a weight regain problem.
I've absolutely said that on this podcast before. And I think we do talk about it. Like we talk about it, but I feel like it's not sexy because it's not like all of these extreme things. And honestly, a lot of the things are what people don't like to hear. Like they don't, how are you medicated right now,
Are we making
Steven?
it sexier now?
No, people have just logged off of YouTube.
Only the YouTubers know. Anybody that's listening to audio only has no idea that my belly button was just exposed.
Totally. But it's
See,
like,
I thought that's why I subscribed to your OnlyFans. You can't be giving that out for free.
Belly button OnlyFans.
Oh, do you think that's a thing? You think that could pay for some of the housework I need done?
I mean, I don't know. People pay for feet.
Yeah, but I feel like that's different. Like that's like a known thing. Nobody's like, ooh, yeah, male belly button. It's like a
People would
hairy
pay
belly
to
button
not
too.
see my feet.
I'd have to shave it probably, wouldn't I?
Maybe
This
not.
really this escaped from us quickly.
Anyways, but I feel like a lot of these things are what people actually don't want to hear. Like it's kind of hard truths to a lot of people because they're like, what do you mean I have to actually keep working out? And like that doesn't mean that you have to die all of the time, but like you have to keep putting in effort. Like you have to put in the work and it has to become more of a lifestyle. And I think that people don't like hearing that. You have to look after yourself. And they're just like, but why?
Okay. But yeah, like I think too, like the discussion I'll have with my clients is that, right in that, lifestyle idea of we're only going to be dieting for a finite amount of time. And, we do have the next 30, 40, 50 years of this. And this truly does need to become this, long-term lifestyle. And so it's just always going to be about the aesthetics of it. And there's so many more benefits to tracking, understanding what's in food, how much you're consuming, all of these things that go into the dieting side and is important then. But at some point, you're not going to be dieting. And then what? And then we kind of really then truly have to incorporate the life part into the lifestyle idea of, yeah, this is going to be real life. We still want to maybe maintain around this, body composition that you have worked so hard to get to, but how do we now start incorporating more flexibility? What are your health values? What do you want your life to look like? Do you want to go out to dinner a couple of times a week? Do you want to have, like, there's all of these other variables now that start to go into it that we want to start incorporating, but how do we now make all of this work together?
I like that phrase, health values, because it's kind of nice. Because I mean, we can all have different values, right? And we value different things. And I think that it's very fair to say that we can all value different pieces of the health puzzle, right? Some of us may put more value on some of like the social aspects of health and mental health that comes with it. And because we value that more, it may be more important for that person to be able to go out to eat and have meals out and so on and so forth. Others of us may value staying home with the dogs, right? So those individuals, it's not as important because they're not going to be put into the same social situations and things. And so I do think that like having your health values and we'll say at least a moderate place is super important for that because without that, you're subject to just the wind. And so Tyler provided us with a study that myself and Jessica did not read at all because he just brought it up. But it's called Perspectives into the Experience of Successful and Substantial Long-Term Weight Loss Maintenance. And it's a systematic review talking about some of the things that people do and some of the things that they keep in their lifestyles, whatever it might be, that seem to correlate at least with keeping the weight off. And I know for me, most of how I diet people is done in a way for sustainability. So the same way that I diet people is going to be controlled in a manner to try and make sure that when we are done with the diet, they have a decent amount of these things intact. And so like that's the hard part because anybody can lock it down for 4, 8, 12 weeks for the most part. Like we have the challenges. We see it on a consistent basis, or at least semi-consistent basis, where there are some people that will straight up do some gnarly things to themselves for 12 weeks.
Yep.
Now, I would say moderate approach that's healthy and long-term sustainable, my definitely preferred. But what happens after that? And the answer is, depending on what you do, a lot of weight regain. And some of the other studies that I've quoted for you guys in some of my other talks and some of the other seminars that I've given talk about like people coming off of The Biggest Loser and how years later, I think it's 6 years later, their metabolic rate is still suppressed. They have still had more weight regain. They are still not able to do the things. So they ended up going into this crazy aggressive approach. Tons of activity every day, crazy low calories. And guess what? Yeah, maybe they lost some weight during that time, but it all came back and they were in a worse place for it. So that's why I really like that moderate approach. I don't know if I ever told you guys, like one of my first clients, like when I came on with Pro Physique, was somebody who had come off of The Biggest Loser. They were post that show. And I'll be honest, like they just set them up for that weight regain with that kind of like crazy approach.
Yeah, and I think that that's like one of the, I guess, quote unquote mistakes is that people don't think about what happens after the diet, right? Or like, what does that even look like for them? Because both of you kind of hit the nail on the head is it could look very different for various people, but it all kind of, there's a moderate approach. There's some sort of quote unquote balance, which I hate throwing that word out there, but there's like mindfulness associated with it. But like, okay, so Stephen, what would like a moderate approach look like?
I think like if we look at it relative, right? I mean, that's always the hard part is to look at things relatively.
Yeah.
Because we always say 1,200 calories is a crazy low diet, but I would die on 1,200 calories, right? So 1,200 calories for a female may be reasonable. I like to look at my things in terms of percentages and say multiplications of their body weight in pounds. So if you're at 10 times your body weight, or say your lean body mass, your stage weight estimated, whatever, in calorie intake, I would consider that very aggressive in terms of food stuff. And then, of course, on top of that would be how much cardio, steps, and activity you do to make that better and or worse. So maybe if you're doing absolutely no cardio and you're at 10 times your body weight in calorie intake, maybe I'm not necessarily as concerned as somebody who's doing an hour to 2 hours of cardio a day and eating that. That person I'm very concerned for. And at the same point, if somebody's stage weight or low body weight would be like 92 pounds, well, 10 times that would be like 900 calories, 1,000 calories. So it's a little bit different. And then I look at, in terms of how we're losing weight, the rate of loss. I like anywhere, my preference is 1 to 2 pounds a week. But realistically, if we look at it in terms of percentages, it would be probably 1 to 2% of your total body weight in loss per week. So if you have a lot more to go, it is okay to have more aggressiveness going into that diet and seeing more of a loss. If you're at, 400 pounds and you're losing 6 pounds a week, I'm okay with that. Like that, I don't have a problem with, because it's probably, that's not going to last forever anyways. But what we're really looking at is even more so, not even just that short term, like maybe 2, 3, 4 weeks, but the longer term of doing that, to where I think that's where I get to see my concern kind of like coming up, because we adapt to things. So if you have very short term intervention, we wouldn't expect kind of crazy adaptation. It's when we do that for long periods of time and over again, or on too regular of a basis, that's when I get worried about like what kind of negative side effects are we going to have after the fact in this diet.
Yeah.
Was that a good answer?
Yeah. But like how you bring someone into a fat loss phase is you're titrating, I guess, down food and titrating up, right? So like you're making this titrated approach. I think what happens is when people come out of that fat loss phase, they're like, okay, like let's just go back to what I was doing, right? Instead of having a more titrated approach, and start like bringing in other more lifestyle factors that, or like more flexibility factors back into their life, so they do have that sustainability approach. And I think another thing that is really important is like that mindset piece, and keeping a positive relationship with food and exercise and their bodies, and how these things are affecting them in different ways, and always coming at it from a more, I don't know, like a not sustainable approach, but like an abundance place.
I think
Like
positivity is a big part of it too. Like
the what?
it like having a positive mindset and
Yes.
positive reasonings for doing stuff. as opposed
Yes.
to like, oh, I hate my belly button, so I'm never going to show anybody my belly, you know?
See
Yeah.
it again.
But I think that that can be what, like, another mistake that people make is like
Jump
hating
too quickly.
themselves, like hating themselves into dieting and then like hating themselves into a better body composition. Like you're not improving your confidence when you hate yourself into a fat loss phase, right? Like if like that's the goal. Like that's just not going to be a place that promotes sustainability. Because I don't know, but like when I diet, there's this like tilting point where I'm like just becoming a little bit more obsessive, and I need to like be really aware of my mindset in that, because it can be really easy to get into that like all or nothing mentality, which I mean, at some point in a fat loss phase, you're just needing to be on top of your shit. But we're not talking about like a competition prep. We're talking about lifestyle and longevity.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, I think if you're going into any diet thinking that you're going to be happier at the end of it because you look better, there's other things to talk about before even then putting that person into the diet for sure. And yeah, I think part of getting someone to not rebound is keeping up with that continuous monitoring. And we talked about kind of that all or nothing mindset there, and there is going to be a place for that when we're dieting. And I still think there is a place for it, especially as you initially come out of the diet. So many people, I find, like, the weight, like the mental weight of dieting is off, and they're just ready to, like, fuck it, let's go, right? And let's go, enjoy it. And as much as, like, I share in that, and I'm like, yes, I want you to, kind of do that, in a sense, the more we can still keep that mindset of weighing things out and still acting like we are dieting, even if it's for that first 4, 5, 6 weeks, what you are going to be able to do to set you up in terms of having so much more flexibility after kind of that relative time frame is huge. Also, in just maintaining that body composition that you have gotten to. I mean, at a certain point, we're gonna want to put that some body fat back on depending on how lean that person got. And so that's something we're going to be looking for and wanting out of this. But if we're someone who's lost 20 pounds and you are already a good lifestyle lean, there's no reason that we can't come out of this diet, keep that body composition, work you up to a true maintenance level, have the metabolism be right in a great spot within 6, 8, 9 weeks. And now you're in a spot where you can maybe take that step back from really tracking hardcore. Maybe we're not tracking veggies and fruits and condiments, or things along those lines. That, okay, we still have some monitoring that we're going to be doing: protein, carbs, fats, but we can take some of those smaller steps back and start to incorporate then whatever else the client might need: free meals, nights out. Then we really get into maybe those health values, life values. What do you want that all to look like?
And so I think it's important to understand there's two different kinds of monitoring, right? And so the study talks about two. And so when we talk about tracking and what we do ourselves, that would be self-monitoring. So anything that we do to make sure that we're monitoring how our intake, our energy output is happening, and our like own thing. But it also talks about external monitoring being a positive benefit on a lot of these people. And so, yeah, that might mean like, oh, a coach or somebody helping you to do that. But for a lot of these people, it talks about things like weight loss support groups, because not everybody wants to be uh, the shredded competitors, right? Some people just want to be in a spot where, their knees and their hips feel better if they want to go on a jog, or if they're going to play with the kids. Some people just want to get to a spot where, their blood pressure comes back down or their A1C improves, right? So there's a lot of different degrees of which this weight loss can occur to. And so it's important to understand that for a lot of people, I know that we bring in and that listen to us, it's maybe people that are on that further end of the spectrum. But if that's not you, there are still a lot of other really good options there that aren't necessarily coaching that you can utilize to have that extra monitoring, that accountability of somebody else saying, "Hey, how are you doing?" "Oh, I haven't been doing well." Like we use it for AA. We know that a lot of people really respond well to that, and see positive benefits. So it's, yes, part of that self-monitoring and making sure you're doing it, but also having other people out there that you're accountable to that are going to keep you invested in the program. And I think that's where the team, like on the competition side, has really been such a hit, because I think most of us felt alone, and we felt very out of place in our fitness journeys, especially as we were getting started. And finding other individuals who got it and other individuals who understood like what we were trying to do and the lifestyle we were trying to live, like that was important. It's one of like those basic human needs to be understood and to have that social group. And I can tell you what, like for most people who keep the weight off, I see a lot of people's friends group change. The things that they do change, the things that the people they hang out with, those activities that happen change, because a lot of those things that we might do prior to being as concerned with that and for keeping weight off and maintaining and all that fun stuff, it's not necessarily stuff that helps us out with that.
Yeah, that environmental piece is huge. I mean, and that can be one of the harder hurdles that people experience when they are making a lifestyle change, is that their friends just seem different to them, or that they have to have these hard conversations with family, with loved ones. I mean, I don't know. I'm of like the belief that my friends will be my friends, despite, me not wanting to drink every weekend. And if I don't want to drink and they don't want to be my friends anymore, then that's their problem. And like, that's their loss. But you're right. Like it is hard. So like, how do you meet these people? What?
I was gonna say, so you mean you don't like people telling you what you have to do?
No, to some degree. But yeah, I mean, you need to look at your environment, and you need to ask yourself if your environment is that thing that is potentially holding you back from maintaining your goals. Because that's an important piece. Even at home, like I've had a few clients where their home life is just not an environment that is supportive. I personally have been in a work environment that was absolutely not supportive of my fitness goals, which was weird because my job at the time was working with athletes, and that was odd to me. So, your environment really does, you need to look at your environment, and sometimes you need to change it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So
That's like,
I think that's a big one. And I think that one, there's a lot of difficulty there with like family and friends and long-term stuff. And I think the biggest thing is if you can have healthy communication, and if you can explain to them why something is important to you, we would hope that they would be able to support you. Obviously, we all have our own baggage and everybody has their own biases and all that fun stuff. But I think most of us would agree that if we feel like we're doing something positive and beneficial for ourselves, and weight loss, weight maintenance, healthy weights, all that kind of stuff, we would expect and hope that if the people who care about us and love us would be supportive of us and those things where we're trying to better ourselves. I think that in and of itself is a tough question, and probably one that a lot of people don't want to bridge and ask, because if we feel like these people really love us or care about us and that's not their answer, then that can create a crisis in terms of that identity of that relationship. And that's like a tough place to be.
Yes.
Sometimes these people just don't understand though. So like the understanding and explaining, like Stephen, like you said, that's an important piece, because a lot of time people they maybe just don't understand. Also, the way that you word your goals to these people matters. If you're saying, I have to, and you're like making it out to be this like thing that you
Or
just like despise. Yeah, you're like, oh,
yeah.
I'm gonna get in the gym.
What about the
Like,
I can't? Like, no, I can't eat
yes,
that.
I
Like that one
can't
sets
eat
people
that.
off all the time.
Yeah, because then people are like, well, sure, you can have a little bit. It's okay. You're gonna hear that unless you go, oh, I just don't really want that. No, thank you. That's not within my goals. I'm just keeping track of my food. Like, my mom was here this past weekend and I let her know. I was like, hey, I'm just letting you know I'm going to be on my shit a little bit. That doesn't mean that what you want to do doesn't matter. Like, I want to do what you want to do. I might just like have my meal at home and we go out and we do whatever together. And that's cool. And she was like, oh, okay, great. And then she was asking me about like competing and stuff like that. Right. So I've obviously built that relationship with her, but when you make it a choice that you are making and something that you are doing to feel good or like benefit your health or something that you just do for you and you enjoy it, or it's a choice that you are making, then it comes across as something that like people aren't gonna usually be like, well, we'll just have this. It's okay. Da 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 da.
Yeah.
Right.
If anything, like you open up more curiosity on their part, right?
Yeah.
And maybe, maybe you're the person who does help change an environment, then not only does it become more conducive to, your long-term health goals, but without really even having to go, let's say, find new friends, you've actually been the person to make those, environmental changes. I think like it's just like with anything, like the more aggressive you are, the more you're going to shut people out. So it kind of comes down to like that type of language that we use and how we communicate ourselves and our goals to the people around us. And that's so important to, yeah, just having that full understanding and that, I think more acceptance.
Yeah, I think it's important that you don't use your internet words.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what you say on the internet. Pretty much nobody cares. And if they don't agree with you, they don't give a shit. And they're going to argue with you and tell you how you're wrong. But people are different in person. And when we have relationships with people, people are much more willing to hear and see. Some people are much more willing to see and hear other viewpoints and like ideas. And hopefully, even if they still maybe disagree, they at least can hear you out and you guys can have a discussion about that. So I think that's one of the important things. And so I know like the untracked, because I do have clients that have untracked meals and I have clients that have untracked days. I feel like most people aren't the greatest with those. It's much more rare to find individuals who can really eat within or whose hunger signaling is within like maintenance levels and who make that work well. And I do find like, and you guys let me know your thoughts. It's more often than not that people who have done like that self-monitoring and tracking for a very long time, and probably those who haven't dieted in a while.
Oh yeah, the dieting piece for sure.
Yeah.
Like the farther away you are from dieting, like I can absolutely handle my shit now. Like I went to Mexico, didn't track a freaking thing, whatever. And it was fine. If that was me, and it was me in 2020, it was like 4 months post show or something like that. That was not fine. I was like, it'll be fine. And it wasn't fine. And whatever. I'm like, you live, it's fine. It's fine, but it's not fine. But I feel like people sometimes, yes, the further away from dieting it is, but intuitively eating or doing these free meals or untracked meals, like it takes practice as well. Like listening to your body, taking its time, and intuitively eating doesn't mean eating whatever the fuck you want. It means still honoring what your body needs, right? So like me, I don't have a gallbladder. So if I'm going to go do a free meal, I'm not going to go get a bunch of fried food because that's actually going to make me feel like shit because my body just doesn't process those things well. And I've had to learn that the not fun way.
Literally and figuratively feel like shit.
Right. Shit doesn't happen actually. So, but yeah, it's like I'm going to pick something that's a little leaner. I'm going to pick something that's going to digest really well with my body. Sometimes that does mean I'm going to go to crumble. But a lot of times it means I'm not going to go to crumble cookie. I'm not gonna, I'm gonna skip on the dessert and I'm just gonna have the meal and I'm gonna move on. I don't know. Your turn, Tyler.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I follow along with the same type of guidelines that I think you guys would have, is that, unless you've, been tracking for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, 80% of the time, I don't think you really have any business going full, full, I'm blanking on the
Full
word, but
bore, going full out with
yeah,
the
going full out on just not tracking, right? And
yeah.
doing it that way. Like, so for myself, I've been tracking macros, I would say anywhere from 80 to 100% of the time for at least 10 years.
Yeah.
I only just recently, probably over the last couple of months, I don't track at all anymore. I don't weigh things out. I don't use my fitness pal, nothing. I'm able to maintain my weight.
So hold on. So you say you don't track anymore, but in your mind, do you still keep kind of a running tally of if you've had enough protein or not?
Yes, because I just know how much that looks like. So it's a certain type of tracking, I guess you could say, if we
Right.
really want to nitpick the words. But I'm not getting into that different kind of mode where I think people really need to have that practice over time. And I also think it's practice with never changing macros. If you're in maintenance, it's doing maintenance for 2, 3 years and still weighing all of that out, because what you're going to be doing is, one, you kind of start to eat the same foods most of the time, and two, once you are doing that over time, you're just going to know, like, especially if you're eating the same foods, you're just going to know, oh, oatmeal sits at this point in the bowl, I know that's roughly 65 grams of oatmeal. Oh, my egg whites sit right here, I've weighed that out countless times, I know that's too high. So you just do gain a lot of those skills. Now, I'll still track my weight a little bit just to kind of, make sure. But I have, my energy is good. I recover well. I get good sleep. I feel great. I don't like, and so for me, it's like, well, I don't really need to track anymore. Like, I don't necessarily care in a sense what I look like anymore. Like, yeah, I still want to look great, but like, it's not a driving force for me anymore. More of just lifestyle, social life, still being healthy. We talked about at the beginning those health values, and I think that's where you really got to find that.
Yeah, and the reason I make that distinction is because I think that when most people say, I don't track, they do whatever they want and they don't think about it and they don't keep it in mind.
Yes.
And so this is a very different thing than when you've been doing this for nearly a decade. And no matter what you do, it's at least a piece of the puzzle. Like sometimes you might be like, F it, yeah, I don't care. I'm going to go hard. But at the very least, you're like, okay, well, every single day I'm like, oh, was I low on protein? Did I get enough protein? Did I eat too much? Did I not eat enough? Like, you know what I mean? So even though I'm not tracking, right, I kind of still am tracking, at least subconsciously and to some degree, even though it might not be the hard tracking where I'm weighing absolutely everything out, putting everything in my tracking app or whatever else it is. And I think that's the delineation that a lot of people, they hear us say untracked meals and they hear us say we don't track or this, that, or the other thing. And it's a misnomer and it's a misinterpretation of what that actually means. And so I do think that is a really important thing to make sure that we describe that delineation, because we've been doing this for so long. There's really no shutting it off, not completely. Like you
No.
kind of close the floodgates a little bit, but it's still trickling out.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
is a
Like
good
when,
clarification.
yeah, when I like, okay, so when I was in Mexico, I didn't track, but I ate the exact same thing for breakfast as I literally eat at home. And for lunch, I had a good amount of chicken breast and a salad, right? Like, and I was, oh my God. And like rice, right? So like, and I really didn't drink alcohol except for 2 days. But I'm a cheap drunk, so I had like 2 drinks and I was great.
You are a cheap drunk.
Yeah.
I wish I was a cheap drunk.
Sorry. Actually not sorry. But I think people discredit the goal of maintaining. Like it's okay for your goal to maintain, because you can say that to someone and they'll be like, what do you mean you're maintaining? That's your goal. And they'll like, they don't see it as something that is a goal,
Which is
something to like
weird,
work towards.
right? Because in a world where most people are gaining weight, we don't like
Yeah.
celebrate or really give it due credit to the fact of weight maintenance.
Yeah, I agree. And that maintenance is, I actually had this conversation with a client today. Maintenance is where the magic happens. Maintenance is when you're not stressed out about your cardio or your macros or training or doing all this stressful stuff to do a fat loss phase. It's also not, you know, if we go into other phases like a growth phase where you're needing to have more detail on things. Maintenance is where you can add a little bit more flexibility, but still look after your health and fitness goals. And that is progress in itself, right? Like we just talked about time away from dieting. I mean, I did a fat loss phase with you, Steven, I feel like 3 years ago, but it was like for 8 weeks or something like that. And it wasn't a competition prep.
That's an eternity in my life, bro.
I know. I'm like, I don't know. I remember that.
What
So
is
I
time?
did like, I dieted for like 8 to 10 weeks somewhere between 2020 and now. But like, that's it. Right. And so spending that time away from dieting and maintaining your weight when you're maybe moving countries or you're having big life events or you're really focused on your career and you're a shift worker, or like there's a lot of like life stuff, and then just maintaining your health and fitness through all of that, that's pretty friggin' awesome, because a lot of people can't say that they have done that.
So what would you classify maintaining your weight as, Tyler?
Me? Like are we talking like scale weight?
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say a fluctuation of anywhere kind of 2, 3, 4 pounds over a long period of time. Like, because it's gonna do that, right? Like I notice for most people, it's a 5 pound swing either way, depending on just stress, sleep, water, food, whatever. Like, that's what I would say. Because like I'll come off, I'm around 202, 205. Like that's my maintenance right now. But like, I mean, after maybe a weekend, I'll go up to like 207, 208. But 2 days in, back to eating regular, couple training sessions, right back down. But I've also been like, I'm someone who hasn't dieted much in life. And so for me to change weight isn't too hard.
Okay, it's a secondary question because Jessica said the words magic. Who are you guys' favorite magicians?
Magic Mike.
That's not a magician.
I was like, who's that?
He makes a very weird kind of magic.
He
happen.
makes my clothes disappear.
It's different. My favorite magician is Jack Grady. He's the guy that does the butt magic. See, now you guys are gonna have to look it up.
I don't follow.
I don't want to go to that website.
It's not a website. He's on Instagram, man. It's pretty good. Like, imagine like me if, I was a magician. I like to think that I would be like semi in that realm if I did magic tricks.
Butt magic.
Yeah.
I just think of the brother from Arrested Development.
I didn't watch that show that much.
when you say magician, I'm like,
Yeah.
like
He
him.
he wasn't great though. He wasn't very good.
No, he wasn't very good.
No.
That does motivate me though.
Penn and Teller. I don't watch a lot of magic.
Also solid.
I just
Chris Angel?
who?
Chris Angel?
That,